And I've got Keith Kilpatrick from the Southern Regional College in Northern Ireland, and Celine McCartan, who's the Collaboration Programme Manager for the FE sector in Northern Ireland, and previously with that was with the South Western College in Northern Ireland. So welcome to you both. Thanks for joining us. And really, I guess the first question is, you know that English colleges are going through this process of area review, and based on the experience you've had in Northern Ireland, where you've been through something pretty similar, what do you kind of think the big challenges for English colleges are going to be out of that result? Keith, I don't know if you want to take that one first.
Well, I suppose to make sure that when you have an imposed merger, which is what the mergers were in Northern Ireland, they weren't mergers by choice, they were mergers imposed by government. There is a tendency, or there was a tendency certainly with some colleges, for one college to take the absolute lead. And when that college takes the lead, it tends to mean that the cultures in other colleges become a bit more embedded and defensive almost. So there's a big cultural issue, and I think anyone who is in post in a senior position needs to be very aware that culture becomes very, very important, because very, very quickly there's a them and us develops. And I suppose that a lesson there is that to try to avoid one college being a dominant partner, that everyone's in it together, and that really helps ease the culture to becoming one organisation then.
Well, certainly the perception around that,
yes,
and I mean, key to that is obviously communications. I mean, it's in every strategy book, but it really is. There has to be that transparency. There has to, again, you have to build confidence in the leadership. So therefore, it's important that that the senior leadership or management team, deals with all the staff and puts out some clear messages there as to the roadmap forward and what the new college is going to look like.
So do you think that's the kind of big ask of a college in this kind of position? Is that the thing above everything else you'd urge them to consider as they start to kind of go through this process?
Again, communication can work at many levels. My own experience was of, there were 16 colleges in Northern Ireland, which then merged to become 6. So that meant you had, broadly say, 3 colleges coming together into one. The drivers behind that was to create larger economic units that were more viable, but also to increase the profile of the colleges and the profile of further education. And certainly that has been, that has been achieved, and that is the link with business and industry is much stronger as a result of the new structure for further education in Northern Ireland. But as I say, my own experience, we had 3 similar sized colleges coming together, and we came together in, I suppose, what would be described as a federal model. So we actively tried not to not to have a head and shoulders, but to disperse and to have functions, support, and that across all of the geographical locations, and that again, jobs and services in those areas as well. Not always ideally possible, but one of the things, again, sort of, I suppose, building on the communication theme that we started very early, was to establish working groups, working on particular projects, working on existing sort of standardisation issues, but also new projects where you could bring something new to it. And an interesting, I suppose, maybe tip there would be, it's important the college doesn't lose sight of what its mission is, and if you can have something that upgrades the student experience, that can be a very positive outcome, and you have people working on a wider scale and contributing to an improved learner experience that through and that builds the communication. So you're trying to do it more subtly and build up different different relationships, and in so doing then embed the new structure at the same time.
The leadership style is very important as well, because in some examples that I have seen in the college that I was in, whenever we merged, leadership was almost invisible, and that again reinforced those cultures of, who is actually leading the college. So it's very, very important that whoever is in the leadership team, and particularly the CEO, is very visible. And I know in other colleges that CEOs made a point of basing themselves So if there were 4 campuses as part of the new college, they made sure that they spent perhaps the first 6 months in one college, another 6 months in another campus, and that reinforced that culture of, well, we're all now in this as one college.
Because I mean, you've been through that kind of college process yourself.
Yes.
Was that the kind of response that you came out of?
Yeah,
your
and it reflects still in 2 colleges. The college I'm in at the minute, the leader there is very visible. And it's very noticeable that, the culture is much more settled. Everybody sees themselves much more as one college. The college that I left, the leader there, the CEO, had a different style of leadership, and he was almost invisible, and he based himself in one location, didn't really come out of that very much, to talk to the rest of the staff. And I would still argue that in that particular college there still is a bit of entrenchment there, and that's nearly 10 years since the merger, so that's very important as well.
Well, as the English kind of colleges go through, what kind of things either did JISC do or should JISC have done to help colleges like yourselves and to help English colleges as they kind of go through this? Are there things that you think we should be up to that would be helpful?
I suppose we're looking back now, as Keith says, almost 10 years. 2007 was when the restructuring of FE in Northern Ireland took place, and the technology that's available now, obviously, it improves and increases all the time. Infrastructure is important. It's an important enabler in any organisation, and I speak from my experience of looking after corporate services. You do have to merge the finance systems, you do have to merge the HR systems, you do have to create a new student database. All of those practical issues have to be addressed, and certainly that's something that can be done with support from JISC. I don't think that was as prevalent in that time, and certainly now what the colleges are currently looking at, and part of the work that I'm doing in the collaboration project is looking for a new information system, and with support from JISC in an advisory capacity, just to acquire what that new system for the Northern Ireland colleges will be, and it'll be based on a shared services model. We're obviously looking at cloud technology, all of the latest sort of things that can be brought there. Again, I think our experience would be that some colleges moved quickly to deal with infrastructure issues. Other colleges actually retained the 3 separate infrastructures and sort of patched them together. Probably on reflection, if there was advice, we would say be brave and try and take the steps. Again, they form projects that people can be working on and build the team dynamics in new service areas. So yes, there's definitely scope and opportunity for JISC to be supporting the infrastructure review that would be needed to support a newly merged college, and then the software and systems that sit on that technical platform.
And I mean, on the technical point, I'm a technology background, and I would say that JISC itself has matured to be much more helpful now than it would have been 10 years ago, simply because of structures and what's there and the technology that's available. And currently we are using some of the space of the Slough data centre, and the effort there that we're making, which a lot of colleges are now obviously doing, is to try to get our tin, if you like, our servers off premise and more cloud services and so on. And I think that JISC have quite a lot of expertise, consultancy experience, and in fact the infrastructure to help with that as well. So I would see them playing quite a big part in that, and also with their procurement arm developing as well, that there will be, no doubt, as those technologies merge, there will be procurement need to happen as well in order to make those much more similar in terms of the technology platforms that the one college is going to use as opposed to 3 or 4. But there's a lot to bring there, I think, from a JISC perspective. Yeah.
One of the things that you hear about all the time, and I think I've heard about it ever since I've been in this kind of space, is we need to share good practice. And so what's your kind of view about what actually is that, and what stops that sharing?
Do any of us know academics who share good practice? I mean, that's up for grabs. What I found in the college I was in was that for a period of time, sharing good practice is a very, very challenging space, because people tend to go into their own shells. They tend to get quite precious and protective of their own space, because I'm quite sure colleges here will be the same. There will be teaching teams who are delivering on exactly the same courses, and very quickly you're saying, why can't they share resources, why can't they share practice? when you actually go and ask them, they will say, well, why should I be sharing? And it becomes very, very defensive. And in fact, I would say we're probably still, even 10 years down the line, struggling with that.
Territorial issues there.
Where we have people working on the same courses. We've got VLE platforms now. We're trying to encourage them, to share, not duplicate, sharing of effort. And you do get pockets of it happening, but it is still a very, very difficult thing. So I wouldn't necessarily see shared services, shared practice, sharing best practice as an easy win. It's a difficult road.
It does bring us, I suppose, right up to date in terms of our journey and our work, because colleges, we've just recently had a new further education strategy has been developed by our department and our minister, and I mean some of the priorities and the themes there are around sharing best practice, both in terms of effectiveness so that we can provide better services, and also efficiency in the I suppose the climate of public sector funding. So that's where the collaboration project and programme now comes in. So while we are certainly looking again at our systems and trying to organise those on a much more collaborative and shared basis, we are also there's significant developments in areas of curriculum as well. There are new level 3 and level 2 framework qualifications for apprenticeships and traineeships in Northern Ireland, and those are being done created by the colleges working 6 working together to create one new framework, and then the rollout of that will be again on a very standardised and consistent basis. So in many respects, some of the practical issues that the merger mergers didn't tie up are now coming on board and still are part of our work in progress. And really, I suppose, if you think about it, you've got mergers, you've got shared services, you've got collaboration. All of them are change programs, yes. And that's really what you're going to be dealing with, and similar for area-based reviews and the next iteration, whatever that is. They're all essentially change projects.
Just before we close, one kind of last bit. So. What's the kind of vision for FE in Northern Ireland? It's a very special and particular space. So what does Northern Ireland think that's going to be like?
I think we've already touched on it, but it is very much linked to the economy in Northern Ireland. There is a desire to see the Northern Ireland economy prosper further, and there is a clear understanding of the role that further education and obviously professional and technical education, that the role that plays, providing the pipeline of skilled workforce for existing companies to develop and prosper, and for new companies hopefully to come to Northern Ireland and invest inwardly there. So we have a close alignment to the economic future of Northern Ireland, and that's where our curriculum and our focus has been.
The colleges are actually moving out of Department for Education, or Department for Employment and Learning, or Department of Education if you like, and moving into a Department of Economy, which brings it much closer even to organisations like Invest NI, which do a lot to attract businesses in, and the colleges are then tasked to supply, if you like, a workforce which is fit to encourage then that investment to come to Northern Ireland. But another big strand of the FE strategy is also social inclusion.
Yep.
But the challenge there around social inclusion is obviously get people into employability. But around that there are funding issues, in terms of, what way do you want to do this? And there are barriers maybe to funding and making that happen. But it is certainly a stated strategy, and it is still something that colleges will very much be expected to participate in. So it's about, people in employment, upskilling the workforce, getting a skilled workforce that is fit to enable departments like the Department of Economy to attract investment inwardly, because Northern Ireland is still very much an SME-based economy, which means that in itself is a very challenging space in order to economically engage. Local councils have become much larger and a much bigger player, and colleges will now be looking to become strategic partners of those local councils in order to leverage, I suppose, more political weight to try to get more investment into skills. And as Celine has said, we are looking at a whole redesign of our curriculum at level 2, level 3, and a rationalisation of our HE curriculum in foundation degrees and higher level apprenticeships, all targeted to meet those priority skills areas. And that's what colleges will probably be focusing on much more than potentially in the past, where they were kind of a jack of all trades and master of none. They're becoming much more focused on what they deliver.
Excellent. on that note, we're going to have to leave it. Celine,
Okay.
Keith, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.